Good evening, my name is Jordan Advansky, and I'm doing a slideshow on sexual reproduction for Unity College biology class. Sexual reproduction definition: the production of a new living organism by combining genetic information from two individuals of different types, sexes. In most higher organisms, one sex, a male, produces a small motile gamete, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which travels to fuse with a larger stationary gamete produced by the other, a female. Asexual reproduction. Why is it different? In order to understand why sexual reproduction is important, we must also understand the role of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is a type of reproduction that does not involve the fusion of gametes or change in the number of chromosomes. The offspring that arise by asexual production from either unicellular or multicellular organisms inherit the full set of genes from a single parent. This means that organism cells duplicate and clone themselves to create another organism. Some examples of organisms that use this are worms and bacterium. Why do organisms use sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction causes for more adversity in genetics. This is for a couple of different reasons. Not only do organisms have genetics from two other organisms, one father and one mother, but in asexual reproduction, organisms quite literally clone themselves, leaving little room for diversity. The importance of diversity in genetics comes into play when considering diseases and challenges that organisms face. Advantages of sexual reproduction. As stated, sexual reproduction leads to more genetic diversity. Let's dive deeper into that theory. If a disease attacks a species of cat, for example, this is clearly just an example, but if a disease attacks a species of cat, but it only affects the organisms in the species with bobtails, this leaves great room for the rest of the cat populations without bobtails to survive, allowing the species as a whole to survive. But if cats reproduce asexually and bobtail cats just made clones of themselves, they all may perish due to little genetic diversity. Advantages Part 2. There are many reasons organisms use sexual reproduction. Not only does it cause for more resistance to disease, but it creates adaptation to new environments by means of evolutionary processes within a species. It also creates a more unique organism. In humans, it gives us distinct features from which we can tell each other apart. Disadvantages of sexual reproduction. Let's take a look at some disadvantages of sexual reproduction. Because sexual reproduction takes DNA from two organisms that combine, it is a much more complex process. Due to its complexity, there is more room for error to occur within a species. It also takes time and energy to find a mate, and species have biological clocks that coincide with their fertility. One obvious disadvantage is that you do have to have a mate to sexually reproduce. It also takes more time to sexually reproduce. Disadvantages Part 2. Because it takes time to reproduce sexually, this can lead to more instances of endangerment of a population because they cannot populate as fast as organisms that reproduce asexually. Genetic variety can also lead to deformities and mutations more easily than if an organism reproduces asexually. Examples of sexual reproduction gone wrong. One species that comes to mind when thinking of sexual reproduction gone wrong is humans. One family, known as the Habsburgs, had sexual relations within their direct family bloodline. This causes deformities and issues such as the Habsburg jaw and even conditions such as epilepsy. What causes genetic deformities in sexual reproduction? Chromosome abnormalities often happen due to one or more of these. Errors during dividing of cells, which is meiosis or meiosis. Errors during dividing of other cells, mitosis. And exposure to substances that cause birth defects. And I can't pronounce that word, but I'm going to try teratogens. Other ways that sexual reproduction is detrimental to humans. Humans can face many issues with infertility such as PCOS, endometriosis, impotency, among many other issues that prevent sexual reproduction. While these issues and many others may make sexual reproduction seem unfavorable, the fact that it brings genetic diversity alone in order to preserve species and organisms makes it advantageous for living beings and more common than asexual reproduction. Thank you for watching, and here are some of my references. Hope you have a good night.